What's going on, dude?
What's going on, brother?
Long time no
Well,
see.
yeah, welcome back to the show. You had a pretty busy weekend bringing in your newborn child, so welcome back and welcome to the family. And give us a little insight on what your weekend looked like, buddy.
Dude, it was kind of crazy. So, I was talking to you and Bryce pre-show. Basically, February's been one for the books, right? We roll one of the most difficult Chiefs playoff runs, difficult playoff runs in NFL history if you want to look at the metrics. Cap that off with an AFC Championship win. We're going to the Super Bowl heading into February. Right after that, I go to Disney World, officiate a wedding, my mother's wedding. Have a great trip there. Parlay that straight into the Super Bowl where we capture the dub. And then the day of the parade, I get a call from my wife that I need to make my way over to the hospital because we're going to be welcoming our baby girl. So, wow, what a turn of events. She was a little bit early, but mama's healthy, baby's healthy. I'm super excited. Obviously, the first, what am I? We're five, almost five. We are 5 full days into fatherhood for me, and it's been incredible. Tired for sure, but I'm glad she's here. I'm glad she's here early, as long as it means she was healthy. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, been waiting a long time to see her face, see what she's gonna look like, all that good stuff, and I don't have to imagine it anymore because it's reality. So it's been a lot of fun. What a crazy first 3 weeks of February for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And having healthy family is something that is not to be taken for granted. That's for sure. I know we've had a couple spells with sickness here and there, but that whole process there in the first month of life for your child is quite the exciting one. So, I mean, we've talked several times over the last several days, and
Oh yeah.
how happy I am for you and excited for you to embark on this new journey. And I hear you on being tired. I've been tired for the last 2.5 years, so it's not gonna go away anytime soon, brother.
Nah, I'm just gonna have to get comfortable with it.
Yep, yep, yep. So I mean, here we are. The off season started, and everything is, as far as the Chiefs go, it's right back to business. And we're looking at, as everybody heard during the parade there in the last week or so of conversations, we're looking at three-peat. That's the mindset over there at Arrowhead One Drive, and I think that's the mindset in Chiefs Kingdom as well. After
Oh yeah.
obviously healing from what we saw, on the parade day, with that shooting there at the parade just after it ended. And it's awful that it ended that way. And it's awful. Yeah, first of all, somebody lost their life, in the middle of Kansas City for no reason, for celebrating the Chiefs win. But also, a couple people decided to show up and shoot around a bunch of kids that day. And I think, for me, being a father, like you just talked about, you know, I thought that morning, going to work, I didn't go to the parade. I thought that morning, I was like, man, I cannot wait until, Tate and Trip are old enough to where we can go and experience things like this and have those kind of moments. And now you gotta think about those things. And somebody took that, took that. I'll say, I'll say this lightly, took that opportunity maybe from my kids, but at the end of the day, I didn't lose quite as much as some people did. And it's unfortunate that, again, somebody decided that the answer was to shoot a bunch of kids in downtown Kansas City at the parade. And it's disgusting is what it is. And it's, I hope, one, everybody, has that went to the hospital that night, went to Children's Mercy, has been released and they're healthy, or on the way to being healthy. And, it's I hope this doesn't, Kansas City is kind of city that unites pretty quickly and
Oh yeah.
often. And I think this will be another point for the city to kind of come together and kind of reflect and say, hey, man, like, we got some freaking issues, which Kansas City's had issues for the last several years. Things have not been going in the right direction as far as violence, and something needs to change in Kansas City for sure. And I'm looking forward to the city coming together, uniting once again. That opening day in Arrowhead will be a very moving and powerful moment there before the game. I just know it already. And I think we should still, celebrate the success that we had this season, and we will remember this Super Bowl for two reasons: one being back to back, and then two for what happened at the parade. And that's really unfortunate.
It is unfortunate, and there's a couple things I definitely want to touch on. While we're on the subject, we're a little bit removed from that, but definitely the wound is still fresh and open for a lot of people. I have a lot of family here in Kansas City. All of our roots are ingrained in the 816, and unfortunately, the woman that lost her life, Lisa Lopez Galvin, terrible set of circumstances related to that and surrounded there. And I know she was close with a lot of my family, and I never got to meet her personally, but I saw a lot of posts come out on social media from cousins, aunts, that sort of thing. And so, I feel for them. I feel for her family. And I feel for the families of anyone that was affected by that, whether it was, not being able to find your child in the scramble. You had these different stations set up where displaced children were being sorted back to their families, or whether it
Yeah.
was, someone was a victim of that violence and had to spend a few nights in the hospital and recover, and essentially, because there were children involved, there's an innocence that's being taken away from them as well, which is it is disgusting. I totally agree. Now I know you mentioned Kansas City specifically. I want to make sure that this point is heard. I think Kansas City, because you said, we unite well around each other, and I think the heroes that day are way more indicative of what you're going to find in Kansas City than what those shooters showed the world on Wednesday, February 14th. Right? They were
Oh
able
yeah. Yeah.
to make a huge difference. It could have been a way different set of circumstances that day if they hadn't apprehended that shooter. So, I want to give a shout out to the father and mother or father and daughter duo
Yeah.
who
Yeah. Yeah.
essentially subdued uh, that criminal um, at the parade. And secondly, this is a constant problem, right? It's schools, it's movie theaters, it's parades now. I mean, it doesn't matter where you're at. You're in a constant state where you're having to worry about the security of yourself, your family, and I don't have the answers on what it takes to change that. You know what I mean? But I think not discussing the problem, letting this blow over in a month or so, where it's just, oh yeah, remember when this happened? That's when you kind of run into some problems down the road. So I don't have the answers. I don't know what it's going to take to make these kinds of things go away. I know this is a problem that's unique to America, unfortunately. And we just hope that things get better, and when we complete that three-peat, it's going to look a little different for the parade. Right? It's and that's the least of the consequences of this scenarios of this whole situation. So, um, yeah, I feel for everybody being affected by this, and hopefully there's a lot of positive lessons that are learned from this, a lot of positive change that is enacted in one way, shape, or form, and definitely heart goes out to everybody um, that were victims of that situation last week, for sure. Made for a crazy trip to the hospital. Honestly, I had no idea what was going on. My wife gave me the call right as the end of that parade was happening. So I'm like driving on the highway, flying in the opposite direction of where multiple police vehicles are driving past me. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? I get to my house, start unpacking or start packing our suitcase for the hospital, turn on or see some text and turn on the news. And I call my wife back and I'm just like, oh my God, we have family that are at that parade. I don't know where they're at. We haven't cell signal's terrible, so it was just one of those situations where it just added a different flavor to the day, and unfortunately, it was a sour one for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But with the, I think that was, it's definitely something we want to talk about and be a part of there. I didn't want to let that one go, and
Hmm.
um, look, the only way we can go is up. That's for sure. And accountability across the board is is essential at this point. At the end of the day, those are two kids out there, shooting around. So,
Yep.
what are your kids doing out there? Where's mom and dad? I mean, what's going on? So, um, there is some light at the end of the tunnel here for us here, Dan. We're gonna move on here with some better news here. As we saw, just after the Super Bowl, really, Spags got an extension. After the performance he had, really throughout the playoffs. Against the four of the top six offenses in the NFL, and being able to hold them, I think, to like 15 points, and the average points allowed in the playoffs that we had on this run here. And rightfully so, gets his extension. Spags has been a huge part of what happened this year. First two Super Bowls with Patrick Mahomes were because of Patrick Mahomes and the offense. And then this year was heavily carried by that defense. We've talked about it throughout the year on the performance that they've had. And Spags gets his cash. He gets to hang around a little bit longer. And Chiefs fans get to be happy for a little bit longer as well.
Man, I'm so glad we're keeping him around for the long haul. Um, a lot of speculation on his previous tenure as a head coach has been thrown out there on, why isn't he getting an opportunity to lead another team? Why isn't he getting a shot or getting talked about as a head coach? And you look at the circumstance around his tenure with the Rams, right? It was Stan Kroenke in St. Louis trying to get the team out of there. There was clearly something nefarious going on with the way that the Rams left St. Louis, bad enough to where they had to pay back the city millions and millions and millions of dollars. So, was the deck stacked against him? I think it certainly was in his tenure where he was able to rattle off less than 15 wins. But I mean, you see what he's been able to do with this defense. He came here in 2019. He's parlayed that into incrementally better performance year over year, not just in points per game, but in just about every other metric, including keeping the team in the top 5 in sacks the last 2 years, top 2 in sacks
Yeah.
the last 2 years, and has accumulated 3 Super Bowl rings in the course of that time as well, making him the most decorated coordinator in NFL history. So for him to get locked in for our franchise for the long haul, I think it just puts a different comfort level on what the future is going to look like. Andy Reid isn't always going to be around. Maybe Spags ends up being that guy that takes over. I know a lot of people thought Matt Nagy was going to be that guy. It could end up being him down the road. I mean, we just never know what's going to happen. The players love him. I mean, they're making
Yeah.
T-shirts
Oh,
for the
yeah.
guy and,
Yeah.
raising money with those T-shirts as well. So, if you follow Justin Reid on Twitter, he's been leading the charge on that, where they're turning those profits into charitable donations. So you love to see that. But having a guy like Steve Spagnuolo or as Chris Jones would say, Steve Spagnolia on the on the staff for us is pretty awesome. I love that he's going to be around for the long haul. He's great for our culture, and you know, very excited about that. Speaking of Chris Jones, the Chiefs did pay out those bonuses. There was an option of some sort in his contract that they triggered to pay those bonuses out and return the right to franchise tag him. Now, a franchise tag for Chris Jones is going to be damn near $30 million. I think that tag is going to
32.
be better spent towards L'Jarius Sneed if they're going to tag anybody.
Yeah.
But Chris Jones was talking during the parade, going to be here next year and the year after that, and so on and so forth. All the
Yeah.
memes
Yeah.
of his agents were cracking me up.
Yeah.
Um, well, actually, one of them tweeted, One of them tweeted and said, "Bartender, cut him off." So he's like negotiating against himself on that
Yeah,
parade
yeah.
stage. So pretty great. Pretty great that, I think this is almost a renewed sense to be here in Kansas City for Chris Jones, right? He had his second holdout last offseason. His tune was definitely a little more somber at the beginning of the season than what it was at the end. Naturally, it's going to be a little more up, up, up when you win a Super Bowl, your second in a row. But man, I'm really hoping 9-5 is back for the next couple years for sure.
Yeah, it's I know I'll come out and say this, flat out, man. I haven't had a lot of great things to say about the situation with Chris Jones, and I know he wants to get paid, and I don't blame him. He's a Hall of Fame defensive tackle. That there's no question about that at this point, and he deserves to get paid. And I've bashed him for taking plays off and not being the guy, but at the end of the day, he's a Hall of Famer and he makes freaking plays when plays need to be made. And something that's not talked about a lot with Chris Jones, he's a leader. Guys look up to him on the defense and the offense. We saw him multiple
Yep.
times on the sideline throughout the postseason, rallying the troops or calling people out on the offense for McCole Hardman when he loafed on a couple passes in the Miami game, and those are the kind of things that you can't really put a dollar figure to. And that was kind of one of the stumps with Tyrann Mathieu. Letting Tyrann Mathieu walk was because he was kind of that guy. He
The
held a lot of
accountability
guys
guy.
he held a lot of guys together, and guys looked up to him, and he knew how to play ball, and he had a certain level of expectations for everybody around him, as himself. So I would like to see Chris Jones back. I think he's a big part of obviously the Chiefs team, but man, Kansas City loves Chris Jones. They really do. I think a lot of people
How
are
can you
split
not?
right now. They're pretty torn on how they want this contract situation to go. And, just looking at the numbers long term, it's tough. It's a tough pill to swallow to say Chris Jones is going to be here another 3 or 4 years for 90 to 120 mil. That is tough to swallow, right?
Yeah.
Looking at the cap situation and the struggles we had in offense, and how do you make that work? And it's just part of the gig, and I'll trust in Veach to figure that out for sure. He's been freaking lights out for several years now. So yeah, I think franchise tag is looking more like Snead, and I think with
Yep.
that being said, it'll be interesting to see how Snead reacts to that. He's going to get like 18, 19 mil off the franchise tag. But that alleviates some pressure off the top of that cap where we can make some moves, for some of those guys to get paid that aren't necessarily up for contract extensions this year, but maybe we could front load that and then be able to take care of him next year for sure. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting, man. It's going to be a really fun off season. I know there's a lot of moving parts for the Chiefs right now, and I think for at least another week or so, we can still enjoy this Chiefs dynasty. That's for sure.
Oh, we're gonna be enjoying this for the next 10 years, brother. It's like it's just the beginning, I feel like, with L'Jarius Sneed, man. 18 million. I mean, you got to look at what he got paid before. He was a fifth round pick, fourth round pick. I mean, those guys are barely cracking a million the first couple years, and then maybe they get to 2 million if they're lucky the final year of their contract. And we were getting all pro caliber play from him the last
Oh
two
yeah,
seasons, really. This year being that big breakout season for him. So whether he gets paid by us
yeah,
on the franchise tag with 18 million, I think that's a bargain for what we get from L'Jarius Sneed on the field.
yep,
If he ends up leaving Kansas City and he gets paid, man, I'm gonna be happy for him because he deserved it. And those players, when they perform on the field like that, they deserve to get paid the big bucks. They deserve to reset the market, which I think Snead is going to be that kind of player on the market this year. So tag him. I can absolutely see that being the case. So we can get him for one
yeah.
more year, go for the three-peat kind of thing, and then see what a long-term extension could look like. Cap situation, I'm seeing anywhere from 230 to 250 is kind of what the cap room's looking like. So
I
all
heard
that
250 on
goes.
the dot.
I
I
mean,
read that, I guess.
I'd be thrilled about that. Thanks, T Swift, for
Yeah.
bringing in those extra
Right.
revenue dollars. So everything with that, man, I'm hoping that ends up being the case because while the cap room goes up, contracts average value, those are going to go up as well. It's kind of like
Yep.
inflation, right? The dollar value for things go up when wages go up and so on.
Yep.
So that's really what we're going to see in the NFL. But in these transitional periods as they're going up is when you can take advantage and make some smart money moves. Not having Brant Tillis, I'm interested to see what we're going to do from a contract perspective in the offseason. We can speculate more on that as we get closer to the free agent period there and kind of seeing some other players get cut. But man, I'm excited. I'm excited to dig into those things. I'm a nerd for the numbers, man. I love the contract talk. I love the options and the bonuses and how are we gonna, from a numbers perspective, how can we get all the talent that we need on this deal? Who's gonna restructure? What's the flexibility look like? Like those things get me going. I love it.
Yeah, no, I know, and I've kind of watched you over the last several years, and I've never really got involved in the off season. I watch the combine, watch the draft, obviously, and keep track of who are picking up, letting go, and how things are going. But I never dive into it, so this is going to be a great experience this year for sure. I'm going to spend a lot more time learning about this and getting involved. So this is going to be great. But Dan, over the last since the Super Bowl, really, we've been hearing from obviously Niners fans are upset, rightfully so. They lost the Super Bowl again to the Chiefs. They're going to be upset for, quite some time, really. And that one's not going to go away. That one's the gift that keeps on giving, They went to Vegas. So um, I will say, there's a couple fan bases out there, primarily the Cincinnati Bengals fan base that's trying to poke holes in what we've accomplished over the last several years. There's remarks about, Joe Burrow is more talented, and if Joe Burrow this, we'd have 17 Super Bowls, and if this happened, we would be, we would have wrecked Mahomes, and yeah, they just keep going and going and going. And this is what happens. This is what happens. This is what we did to the Patriots the last 20 years until we start doing it, right? And we just kept, Tom Brady is really not the guy. If he left, he wouldn't be successful. Or opposite conversation about if Tom Brady left, Bill Belichick can't get it done, or wherever
Well,
the
we know
story
the
was.
truth in those two things.
Yeah. We were talking that shit though. We were trying to knock down the giant. Nobody wants to see
Yeah.
the giant continue to be the giant. And Patrick Mahomes took another step, took another shit on Bengals fans this year. And outside of that, I think we're looking. I don't think anymore. We are looking at a dynasty with the Chiefs here, and we have a few things that we've checked off the box and really solidified, put a cap on the end of that where, you know, it's a dynasty at this point. It's not going anywhere. This is going to be one for the record books, man.
It 100% is. Our dynasty, man, we've been able to put together a lot of things. And one of the funniest anti Chiefs dynasty things that I've seen was like the average distance for a Mahomes touchdown. Like
Yeah.
Mahomes averaged 3.3 yards per touchdown pass, or it was something stupid. But
Yeah.
you put out an argument like that, and at the top of the list are names like Nick Mullins and Jacoby Brissett, and
Tyrod
name
Taylor's number one.
five more quarterbacks that played one game because someone was hurt.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, well, what's your point? Like, does this correlate to success? If anything, you're going to want to look towards the bottom of that list for, a Super Bowl to yards per touchdown correlation, because that's where the last three have gone.
Yeah.
Three out of the last five have gone. So,
Yeah.
whatever. People are going to try and, look for any explanation, anything they can do to fathom what we've been able to do. We've had the most successful stretch over any team for a 5-year stretch. No team has been able
Yep.
to match what we've done. People have taken the best years from the Patriots dynasty 5 years running, map those out, and we have more wins, more success. than what that team was able to accomplish, which I'm not saying we've supplanted them as a dynasty. That's still the number one best dynasty in the NFL. It might be
Yeah,
the best dynasty in all of sports. I think the Chicago Bulls in the 90s might have an argument there as well. Um, and not to get too far down that road, but because I think we could talk dynasties across all sports all day. But with the way that we stack up in the NFL specifically, there's really only a couple of all-time teams that I would find above us. Over the course of our dynasty, we've been able to win 3 Super Bowls, make it to 4, 6 AFC Championship games. 4 of those were wins, of course, division titles each year, and then a number of individual accolades. 27 total All-Pro selections, first and second team, almost 40 Pro Bowlers over that span in 6 years. It's pretty incredible, the individual success as well as the team success that we've been able to accomplish over that time frame. And really, if we look up on the NFL totem pole of greatest teams all time, in my mind, there's only 3 teams still ahead of us. It's the Patriots, the Steelers of the 70s, who have one more Super Bowl than us over 6 years, and the 80s 49ers. Now, for the Niners, their dynasty stretches into the 90s as well. Steve Young won a title with them in 1994, but there was a quarterback transition. So I don't know how much of that really plays into where we rank them, when do we cut that dynasty off, and all that good stuff. But if we're just running
sure.
80s and 90s Steelers or Niners rather, you got to put them up there. I think we passed the 90s Cowboys. I think the Packers, who had a dynasty in the 60s going into those first 2 Super Bowls, we've passed them. Anything pre-merger, I'm not interested in. And then outside of that, I mean, you got the Cowboys in the 70s who've got a couple titles. The Dolphins went back to back in 72, 73. There's some respect there that could be paid because they had that undefeated season. But other than that, man, we are talking all-time stuff here. We win another Super Bowl over the next 2, 3 seasons. We're going to pass the Niners. We're going to pass the Steelers, and we'll be right there with the Patriots. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and to that point, man, I mean, if we go back to the Super Bowl and win another Super Bowl next year, I personally think we surpass what the Patriots have done. We just don't have that longevity. That's
Not
an
yet.
19 year period where they just strung them together, man. There was a 10-year period in there where they didn't go to a Super Bowl, or they didn't win a Super Bowl, sorry. And we just haven't seen that yet. We can't tell the future, obviously. We just don't know what the future holds. And I if you're looking at just a timestamp, all we've done right now in 6 seasons with 3 Super Bowls, I think you got to stack us up, man. I'm putting us at. I think the Patriots, just as a fan of football, watching that, obviously that was greatness, and I watched it from the start to the end. We were lucky enough to be in that age range where we were young enough and we watched it from start to finish.
Yep.
And you know, I just don't think there's a 6-year period in Patriots playoff football where it's as successful as what it was for us. So, am I putting us up there number one? Kind of want to say yeah.
I love the enthusiasm. I think 6-year, if you frame it that way, they have definitely an argument if you're just, because that's what I've seen a lot of people do too with the Patriots dynasty. They want to chop it up into 2 different sections. Because if you remember correctly, there was like a 10-year window where they didn't win a Super Bowl. They went to 2, lost 2 to the Giants. Isn't that right, Bryce? Lost 2 to the Giants in that time frame. And so people want to chop it up to kind of say, oh, they had 2 dynasties in one, which here Bryce is hitting us in the chat. What we got? What we got? Yeah, baby. Come on. Go Eli. Thank God for the Mannings, or else Brady would have 15 rings. So, I mean, people want to chop it up that way, right? You've got your early Brady Patriots dynasty, late Brady Patriots dynasty, and if you're breaking it up like that, like I've seen a lot of graphics do, then I think we do move up the totem pole a little bit, because there were some periods in the Patriots dynasty where, they didn't, the back half even, they didn't string them together consecutively like what they did where they won 3 and 4 years in the early window of Brady's career where it was kind of the defense winning those Super Bowls as opposed to what
Yeah.
he was able to do in offense. He didn't really come into his own until like 06, 07 and really started balling out that way. So, if you're breaking it up that way, I think you have a logical argument where you can say, hey, give me a window in that dynasty that's better than the Chiefs, and it'd be hard to do that. And I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of metrics, there's a lot of things that you have to put together to build your case, but I don't think you're far off, honestly, which is kind of crazy to even be able to say. Now, if we're breaking up into a 6-year window, then the Steelers of the 70s are number one. Because 4 Super Bowls in 6 years, everything that they did in that time frame, that in my mind, if it's like, okay, give me let's go year for year, boom, boom, boom. What has everybody done? We were 50%. They went 4 out of 6, and no other dynasty on this list can say that.
Yeah, yeah, good point there. Good point there. So, before we roll into, what the offseason is looking like, we got some key dates. Obviously, we just talked about how, it took about a week off to celebrate, and front office at the Chiefs is rolling right into business as they should, trying to work on that three-peat. So, before we roll into some important Chiefs dates going into the offseason, I want to shout out quickly to all of our sponsors here. Starting with the Atlas Saloon. Atlas Saloon has been a huge support for us on the Fastest 40 this year, and look forward to doing some shows down there live, specifically for probably the draft and then maybe some others this offseason. So we appreciate what they've done. Be sure to go down there, have a beer, let them know the Fastest 40 sent you. Keith's got a lot of different beers going on right now. He's trying to do a little experiments, trying to figure out some new recipes. So make yourself down there. Make your way down there and be sure to wear your Atlas shirt on Thursday. Get your first beer for free. Next, we want to talk through Better Homes and Garden. Katie Lawrence, who is a real estate agent for Better Homes and Garden, serving the Kansas City metro area. She's going to take care of all that dirty work if you're looking to buy, sell, or build a home. Make sure you're getting a hold of her. She's going to take care of that stuff for you, so you don't have to do that. All you got to worry about is picking what paint color you want on the walls. And then last, we got E-Coffee. This is our longest running sponsor of the show here, man. They've stuck with us from damn near when we started. And E-Coffee is making their own roasted coffee here in the Kansas City area. So we love to support that local business. And they're bringing roasts from all over the place, Congo, Ethiopia, different kinds of places, getting that real natural, crisp taste that you can have fresh brewed in the morning. You can get it ground up, or you can get the whole bean, baby. So Dan, let's walk through some of these dates, into the off season here. I'm going to kick us off with the front half here. So looking here into a week, February 27th through March 4th is going to be a scouting combine. That's where we're going to get a nice taste of what we're looking at for, who's the guys we want to aim at with a 32nd pick in the first round there. March 5th is the deadline to designate that franchise tag. Both of us already kind of talked through who we think that's going to be with L'Jarius Sneed. That kind of makes the most sense at this point. And then March 11th through the 13th, the team can enter contract negotiations with the players, those free agent players on the team, and or their representatives. And then March 13th is the official date for the year 2024 NFL year to kick off. So that's when things are going to get a little hot and heavy. A lot of things are going to start moving here in mid-March, and it's going to be fun to watch, man.
Yeah, man. It's crazy how quick they turn it around on you, because it's like we just celebrated a Super Bowl win. We saw the parade, and it's like week and a half later, we got college pro football hopefuls, college players who were playing in this past season out there showing their stuff to all those scouts and trying to build up their draft stock. And we're going to see so many storylines about, hey, this player fits here. These are these teams' needs. This is who you can project. I like to mock draft, so we're going to see some mock drafts going out there. I might throw a couple up here as we go through that. That's going to be a ton of fun. And then the contract negotiations, that tampering window, basically March 11th, once the dial turns on 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, that's when you're going to see that wave of just contract after contract after contract. And then when that league year kicks off, those become official at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on March 13th. So that's going to be a lot of fun. That's one of my favorite periods, because it's like you're getting March Madness and you're getting NFL Madness, kind of free agency madness all at the same time. So I know my phone's going to be popping off. I'm going to need to bring my charger when I'm out in the field on those days. But damn, that's going to be so much fun. After all that
Yeah.
wraps up, after we know who we're going to attack from the free agent side of things, that's when the real fun starts, where we're like, okay, these free agents, maybe we sign them for 1, 2, 3 years. Maybe we get one big name, big contract out there. We tend to do that traditionally with the Chiefs anyway. It's been one big contract, two mid-sized contracts, 2 to 3 years, and then we do a bunch of one-year deals to kind of button up the
Yeah.
roster before we go into the draft. We're never going to sign anybody over 30 to a long-term contract. That's not really been our MO, at least not Brett Veach's MO since he became the GM for the Chiefs, which shit, it's paid off. So I don't really care what he does.
Yeah.
As we go into the draft, that's when it gets fun because then it's like, okay, what are our needs after free agency? Who can we attack? Who can we project a little bit better for our team to take, right? And when we draft these guys coming up in March or in April rather, that's when trades are going to become more prevalent. We're going to see some first round pick shopping happen. People spend their money in free agency and then they're like, "Okay, I have this capital still. I can make some moves before we get to the draft or the night of the draft. It gets
Yep.
even crazier. So the draft is going to be in Detroit this year. Womp womp. Not coming back to Kansas City. But April 25th through the 27th, we're going to get all 7 rounds of the NFL draft run through. The Chiefs are picking at 32 this year. I'm not sure what our total picks are. I haven't really looked at a ton of it yet. I'm still
Yeah.
still celebrating that Super Bowl. But we'll break down kind of what we're looking at from a projection wise, and potential trades. There'll be a lot of speculation going on. It's going to be a ton of fun. May 2nd, that's when teams can exercise those 5th-year options for players that are going to be ending their contracts the following season. So for us, just to give some further context, only first round picks have the 5th-year option. So only players drafted in the first round of the NFL draft have that as an option within their contract. So this is going to be coming up for players drafted during the 2021 season, which, if memory serves me correct, we did not have a first round pick in 2021. So I don't think anything with the Kansas City Chiefs is going to come up for this particular run of 5th-year options, but there are going to be some guys that you're going to want to watch for. Like, I think Jamar Chase is a given, right? All the quarterbacks, if they haven't had their options taken from 21, like Trevor Lawrence, like those guys are a given. But like Kyle Pitts, I would be shocked if his option is accepted from a 5th-year perspective. So we'll touch on a lot of those things as we kind of move through May. 3rd through 6th, 10 through 13, that's rookie mini camp. Quarterbacks will report during that time as well. And then the rest of the NFL schedule is going to be coming out about mid-May. We know who the opponents are, right? This is the
Yep.
NFC's year. The NFC hosts 9 games, AFC hosts 8, thanks to that 17-game shift. So we as season ticket holders will lose a game, but that just means one of those NFC teams are going to be giving up their games to Europe, Spain, Brazil,
Right.
or anywhere else in the world that we're going to have an international game. So
Yep.
I'm ready to see what that schedule looks like. The boys always try and do a road game every year. I had a little bit of special circumstance last year that didn't let me take a road trip with our boys from Excelsior Springs, but that's going to change this year where we're
We're
getting back
going
on the
to
map with it.
Buffalo.
Let's go,
Going
dude.
to Buffalo. We'll see you
So
up
I'm
there, Bryce.
excited. I'm excited to see what's going to happen. Yeah, Bryce, make your way upstate and join us, dude. Let's take on Bill's Mafia together. So
Yeah.
we'll see kind of how all that plays out. I am pumped. I know Buffalo's a big one. San Francisco would love to go out there and see Levi's. It's a relatively new stadium. I think we're playing in Pittsburgh as well. Would love to go see what that environment's like, get a feel for that. And then
Vegas.
Carolina, just because I love Carolina. And then we have the usual suspects: Vegas, LA. I know you guys went to SoFi last year, but I love
Yeah.
SoFi. I
Yeah.
love
Well, we
going to
need to
LA. I would go back.
we need to close out the West. So I wouldn't be mad at Vegas, but I'm really rooting for Buffalo, especially after really just dampening their January again. I mean, we just ruined. If they were still kind of like in the Christmas holiday joy, for a couple weeks after that. We just ruined Christmas again for those guys. So, I'm looking forward to going to Buffalo.
For a team that had their Christmas ruined like us, I'm glad we were able to do it to someone else and just kind of like pass that feeling off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm glad I didn't go to that game on Christmas Day. I would have been pretty pissed off that day for sure,
Yeah.
even more than it
Yeah.
was. But
Yeah.
no, I would love to be. It's fun being the villain. Mahomes said it. It is fun being the
Yeah.
villain. Yeah, I
It
love
is.
going behind enemy lines and just kind of like having that target on your back when people see that white jersey and the 15 and the red numbers. It's like, oh, I hate these guys. These guys are
Yep.
walking around all high and mighty with their dynasty and blah blah blah. That's what they think anyway. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Obviously, nothing beats a game at Arrowhead for me personally, but just going behind enemy lines for a little bit, it's a good time.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more, man.
Love taking somebody's city for a weekend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. Well, shoot, it's about to get fun. It's about to get really fun this off season. Schedule's going to be a little topsy turvy with it being the off season, but we'll try and keep it regular for everybody. Hope you guys are still enjoying the Super Bowl. Obviously, dampening mood on it from the parade, but again, thoughts going out to everybody affected by that. There's a lot of charitable organizations going on right now to
Yeah.
support people, so make sure
Glad
you
you brought
look
that
those
up.
up and check those out. A lot of those Taylor Swift made a very sizable donation to the family to Lisa's family to support her, along with a number of other people. I think Busio, one of the Sporting KC players, made a generous contribution as well. And anything anybody can do, there's going to be a way to support those people. So make sure you check that out.
Yep. Well said, Dan. Well said. All
Well,
right, brother.
we'll catch you guys later this week.
All right, Chiefs fans.